does my right honourable friend agree that for those who do not want Brexit, there will never be enough time to debate it, and for those who do not want a general election, there will always be an excuse to avoid it, and it would appear that those two positions are not mutually exclusive?
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend is right. I think there may be a developing desire in some quarters in this House to suspend the Quinquennial Act.
We will take a business statement now from the Leader of the House and Lord President of the Council, Mr Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Having made one earlier, I knew the House couldn't wait for another statement from me. I'd like to make a very short statement this evening regarding Monday's business. Before the House considers the second reading of the Environment Bill, members will have an opportunity to debate and approve a motion relating to an early parliamentary general election. The business for the rest of next week remains as I announced earlier.
This will be the third time that the House will have voted on a general election. Can the Leader of the House tell us on any other occasion he can recall that the opposition have been offered an election on 3 occasions and rejected it?
Well, normally, I know, Mr Speaker, earlier today I was actually praising the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Leader of the Opposition, and today I am able to quote him because his words are words of wisdom. He said on the 24th of September 2019, exactly 1 month ago, this crisis can only be settled with a general election. That election needs to take place as soon as this government's threat of a disastrous no deal is taken off the table. We have met the condition he set. The Prime Minister has got a deal. No deal is off the table, and yet, for some reason, the opposition still doesn't want a general election. But, Mr Speaker, we know why this is. We know why they won't have an election. It's because they're afraid of the voters.
A decision on an extension, and we await patiently confirmation from Brussels and the terms the PM proposes. We will not be pushed today by this Prime Minister, because he might be hoping the electorate will fall for his contracts, but the SNP most certainly will not.
Oh, Mr Speaker, isn't it not saddening that Scotland the brave used to be the call that we would get, and now it's Scotland the runaway, Scotland the let's not have an election. The SNP, who wish to challenge the government, actually want us to stay in office. I never thought that the broad coalition of the United Kingdom would have the Scottish Nationalist Party supporting a Tory government remaining in office. I look forward to that appearing on our election leaflets. But it occurs to me, Mr Speaker, that tomorrow is St Crispin's Day, the anniversary of Agincourt. What a good day it might be for us to meet and show our independence of spirit.
That people in this House are blocking Brexit in the name of the sovereignty of Parliament. But whose is this sovereignty? What sovereignty do we hold that does not come from the British people? And shouldn't now the British people be allowed to decide who represents them in this House?
Mr Speaker, as so often I bow to my honourable friend's constitutional expertise. It is quite clear that the sovereignty of this House did not fall upon us like a comet from heaven. It comes to us from the British people. It is the people's sovereignty delegated to Parliament. We need, as we are incapable of using it, to return it to them and ask them to have another election and decide how their sovereignty should be used.
It's absolutely fascinating, but we're not going to embark upon a philosophical discussion on the matter of sovereignty. This
The Liberal Democrats will not support this until we can be sure that this country will not be crashed out of Brexit and the electorate has the choice.
It's always exciting, Mr Speaker, to discover what the position of the Liberal Democrats is, because it changes like a weather vane.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can the Leader of House confirm that if the House decides not to hold a general election on Monday, that he will still bring forward a programme motion at some point thereafter?
Mr Speaker, we hope that the House will vote for a general election on Monday, because we need to clear this up. We cannot go on endlessly not making any decisions, and that seems to be the situation this House is in. It won't say yes and it won't say no, it won't say stay and it won't say go. We need to bring this to a conclusion, and the hard stop of a general election may help focus minds, because nothing else seems to.
Does my right honourable friend agree that for those who do not want Brexit, there will never be enough time to debate it, and for those who do not want a general election, there will always be an excuse to avoid it, and it would appear that those two positions are not mutually exclusive?
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend is right. I think there may be a developing desire in some quarters in this House to suspend the Quinquennial Act.
Can the Leader of the House confirm that if those members opposite wish a referendum to overturn the decision of the last referendum, then they're perfectly at liberty to stand on that basis in the general election, put it in the manifesto, and if they win that election, they can legislate for one?
Yes. My honourable friend's point is brilliant and an incisive explanation of how democracy works. And isn't it extraordinary, Mr Speaker, that though they stand up and call for a referendum, they don't wish to put that to voters? If it were in their manifesto and if, heaven help us, they won, then they could do it. But they're so worried that they can't win and that they wouldn't win their referendum that they just try and use legislative legerdemain to try and frustrate the will of the British people.
Well, whatever the merits, I do like the word legerdemain. It's a splendid word.
Oh, who had seen the Moblet Queen?
The Moblet Queen.
That's good. Moblet Queen is good.
Mr Speaker, just for clarity, can I be sure then that it is the position of Her Majesty's Government that it will only agree to an early election if this Parliament is prepared to railroad through its terrible deal?
Yes.
And if that is the case, then it knows that will be defeated, so isn't the truth that it is the government that it is running scared of an election?
Mr Speaker. Now, the logic of that point, I must confess, defeats me, and it seems it defeats most members of this House. This will be the third time the government has offered a general election. It is clearly willing to have one. It is willing to take its case to the British people. Why? Why are we willing to take our case to the British people? Because we are confident that our case is strong, our case is just, our case is right. And the reason the opposition is so afraid of an election is because their case is weak, is wobbly and is futile.
Thank you, Brendan McNeill.
Mr Speaker, isn't it a fact that halfway through a parliamentary term, Parliament has got a dangerous Prime Minister in a cage, and Parliament would be wise to keep that dangerous Prime Minister in a cage, at least until we remove some of his teeth, if not all?
Mr Speaker, I'm afraid that reminds me of the joke about the time one should go and visit the dentist, which is, of course, at 2:30. But the honourable gentleman, thank you so much, somebody laughed, at any rate. These sorts of jokes amuse my children. We cannot possibly want to remove the teeth of Prime Ministers unless they are rotten, but the Prime Minister has a fine set of gnashers to which to bite through these difficult problems.
Ellen Leake, yes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I hope that honourable members will oppose this dangerous and cynical manoeuvre, not least because no deal remains a real possibility until the trapdoor is closed in the withdrawal bill, which currently allows us to crash out if no future relationship is agreed at the end of the implementation period at the end of December next year. That is dangerous.
Mr Speaker, that tells you all you need to know. The figure of the Green Party says an election is dangerous and cynical. Dangerous and cynical to trust the people. Dangerous and cynical to go back to our voters. Dangerous and cynical to report to our employers. Mr Speaker, that is contempt for democracy.
Why is the Leader of the House playing games with resolutions rather than taking up the offer from the opposition to properly programme the withdrawal bill?
Mr Speaker, we've done both. But offering an election is not playing games, it is trusting the people. Her Majesty's government, the Conservative and Unionist Party, trusts the British people. The opposition benches do not.
Thank you. Order. I'm most grateful.
It is trusting the people. Her Majesty's government, the Conservative and Unionist Party, trusts the British people.